Yeah. Good morning, everybody. How are we? Okay. Thank you for honouring me with your time this morning. I hope it'll be useful. Thank you, Tina, for the introduction. That means I can probably skip the next one. The theme of this whole conference, which I don't know about you, but I think it's the best ever. I know we say that every year, but there seems to be an incredible vibe this year of togetherness. Maybe it's because we've sort of got all the RDR stuff out of the way now, and now we can just get on with what we really know we've been doing since day one. But the theme is inspiring trust, and we all know, many of us will be business owners here, but we all know that to build a successful business, a viable business even, this is essential. It's a prerequisite. The problem we're fighting against, though, is that there is a singular lack of trust in the public eye towards our industry. Now, I use that term, obviously, in its widest sense. And it's not hard to see why. As an industry, we haven't exactly covered ourselves in glory. There are many other examples of things where trust has been betrayed. But all that said, we know that if we get in front of a client, we know that we can instill in them a trust so powerful that they are prepared to bare their souls to us, to trust us with a lot of money sometimes. And that is what I love about this job most. It's that one-on-one with clients. And we know we can instill that trust in people. But is it possible to inspire that kind of trust, or get somewhere near it at least, before they've even met you? My answer to that, obviously, is yes. And if it is true, then that has to be an advantage in a world which is obviously cynical for these and many other reasons. Now, you may have all the clients you want or need. You may not want, or you may not feel that you need. Crap, I've just realized something. Sorry. That's annoying. I always do that. Forgive me again. No, I won't start again.
Just run it back.
You can run it back. Yeah. It's difficult to... I'll come back later to the fact that video is difficult to edit if you screw up. I'm about 2 minutes in. Yeah, that's right. So basically, people don't trust us, but we know that they can, and this is how you do it. Thank you very much. Take that down a little bit. Can you just kill me with it? So you might have all the clients that that you want or need, but there is an advantage you can gain through your efforts online, which I'm going to sort of talk to you about. It's not necessarily about gaining more new clients, but it is about differentiation. In this ever more cynical world, you can elevate yourself above your peers and sort of set your stall out in this new world. So very quick bio. This is me when I was 16. I see this picture and all I see is eyebrows. I don't know whether you can do it. So it's like they're alive. So that's 1991. I like to overachieve in everything I do, so you'll notice a full set of stars on my badge there. I did an electronics degree. I couldn't stand it and failed it, and so I got a job through a friend who worked for the CIS, trudging the South Wales valleys, not far from here at all, other side of Newport and up the Gwent Valley, collecting IB insurance premiums. Okay, hated it. It always rains in South Wales, so I got wet a lot. But they put me through the FPCs. I then went to the Royal and worked in their estate agency division, mortgage and life insurance primarily. Made the leap then to the light side as an IFA. And shortly after that, my Cornish wife felt the call that all Cornish girls feel, which is to go home. And so we moved from Cardiff to 1 mile from Land's End, a place called Sennan Cove, which is the best beach in the country, bar none, and I'll have no argument about that. We now live a little bit inland from that, but I, like many of you, sat the CFP in 2006, and it was a light bulb moment for me. So, this is how it really should be done. But shortly after that, a combination of things happened. I had a kind of epiphany, that's probably over egging the pudding a little bit, where I realized, as Tina said in the introduction, that I really just didn't want to spend my career helping rich people get richer. There's nothing wrong with that at all, but it wasn't what I wanted to get out of bed for. I also had a few people say to me at about the same time, you know, you're really good at explaining that, you know. So that was nice to hear, and it sort of happened the same a few times within a short period. And then I read a book called Crush It, dreadful title, by a guy called Gary Vaynerchuk, who, long story short, used online video to teach the world about wine and became an internet phenomenon. And the message of the book is, the media are there now for you to get your message out free or almost free. And so those three things came together, and I set up Meaningful Money. Why? I genuinely wanted to get good information out there. I didn't think I would get any clients from it. I didn't think anybody would turn up to watch, I have to say. I wanted to get good information out there. It fits my natural bent to sort of help people and share. I'm definitely got some Venus in me, for those that were in John Crean's session yesterday. There's also, my father is definitely a Saturn, so if I get quite legalistic and say, you must do it my way, then that's sort of Saturnine. I'll brook no argument about things as well. But it fits my natural bent to share and help people. I knew that it would generate for me a profile of some kind within the profession. That doesn't really turn me on particularly. It's a useful sideline, really. But I did hope that it may be a kind of a springboard to the national stage. I'd love to be known as the guy that can explain financial things simply. Maybe, okay, might be you. But having said that, this year, Meaningful Money is the second largest source of new business inquiries to my regulated company, which is Jackson's. So there have been financial benefits as well, which pleases my business partners no end. So why might you want to do something similar to that? Well, hopefully by the end of the session, you'll know whether you want to, and if you do, then why you ought to be thinking about it. So I'm going to share really about what I've learned. I'd love to say I'd learned it intentionally, but I've only learned it by trying and failing and doing and learning as I've gone along. But the thing which made me sit back in my chair and had so many neurons firing, I thought I was going to die, is when I had an email which included this 2 sentences. Now, this is from people I'd never met, I'd never heard from, and they said, having watched several of your videos, we feel like we know you and can trust you. Will you work with us? It was a good day, because, you know, this might actually have some power. So what I'm going to do is break it down. So we're going to talk about the knowing and the trusting bit first, and how that got these people to what we used to call a buying signal, and then just sort of how you might do the same, okay? So what does it mean to know? Obviously, we're not talking about the biblical sense here. And actually, they don't say that they know me. They say that they feel like they know me. Important distinction. To know somebody, you need to have shared experiences. You need to have spent time with somebody to get to know them. Then there is a kind of a resonance. You know, we've all been in situations where we've met somebody for the first time and there's been an immediate click. You immediately get on with somebody and you feel like you've known them forever. It takes time to get to that stage, usually. That sort of immediacy is quite unusual. And there's a difference between knowing somebody and knowing of them or knowing about them. Subtle but important difference. My 9-year-old daughter, Kate, asked me on the phone yesterday. She said, Daddy, how many people are there? And I said, I don't know, about 600, something like that. Do you know everybody there, Daddy? No. So how many do you know? Why is it important for a 9-year-old to know that? And I said, well, I don't know. I probably know by name and reputation maybe a third of those, a couple of hundred people. And I said, I only know about 50. And of those, I probably only know well, maybe 10. But the sort of degree of knowing, you can sort of bring people along the path to feeling like they know you. And it's not manipulation. It's just working with our natural bent to want to get to know people. Knowledge, of course, leads to trust, or lack of trust, if what we know about somebody means that we don't trust them. But we live increasingly in a cynical world. We are overwhelmed by branding messages and advertising messages. I mean, my kids are insanely cynical. I don't know about yours. So if an advert comes on from L'Oreal and says about, you know, this new formula, sort of Pepto-Ceramide XY-Q10, which is going to make my hair look lustrous. They beat me to it now and say, well, that's crap, isn't it, Dad? So I've obviously been using wrong words in front of my children. But, you know, they're more cynical than I am, which is saying something. And because we're bombarded with these messages, we are more sparing in our trust. So there's two reasons why trust is more sparingly given. One is because for many people, their trust has been betrayed. So think of, for instance, perhaps Toyota. You know, incredibly reliable cars, and yet a couple of years ago, mass recall because their accelerators were sticking. You know, millions of cars recalled. It affects our trust. Toyota have obviously a massive advertising and branding budget, but we've learnt not to believe that anymore. A Quittable Life, perhaps. You know, the solid institution, which turned out not to be so. So, you know, we are more cynical than we used to be. Because we've been let down, and because of the sheer volume of messages that we now have to filter through. So what I'm going to do is take you through a survey. I'm going to ask you to do a survey. There is a survey which has been done by About.com. And when I read it, I thought, fantastic, that's my IFP talk sorted. So what this survey did was ask people how they relate to brands online and what has to be in place in order for a consumer to trust a brand. And it established 10 elements of trust when dealing with a person or a brand online. And those 10 elements were split into 3 categories. So firstly, the fundamentals, the thing which absolutely must be in place, without which trust in online content provider cannot happen. Secondly, the confirmers, the things that once you have decided to trust, just reinforce that decision. And then, once you've got somebody to that stage, the things which differentiate you. So let's rattle through these. Firstly, the fundamentals. So firstly, transparency. Your motives for what you do online, I'm going to come on to how you do that in a minute, remember. But your motives for what you are doing online must be clear to those consuming. So if the goal of your online content is to sell something, that's fine. If your goal in your online content is to just inform people, that's fine too. But don't dress one up as the other. So don't, you know, put up an information site which is actually a very thinly veiled sales pitch. People will not trust you if you do that. Don't disguise one for the other. Relevance. So the stuff you're putting on your website needs to be on topic, obviously. Don't put yourself out as talking about one thing and then talk about something else. But it needs to be evident that you understand your consumers' needs and their situation, and that you then meet those needs with what you're putting online. The format that it's in, the information that you provide needs to be easy to use and apply. People don't want to waste time hunting for the information, so don't bury it. Put it front and center. Make sure it's not given grudgingly. If you want people to trust you, you need to gush a little bit and put yourself out there, that people will appreciate that. And obviously, what you put needs to be correct. People won't assume you know what you're talking about anymore. People now validate everything they read online, and the primary means that they do that is through their social graph. So if, for example, you were writing a blog post late at night about holding property in a SIP, and instead of writing commercial, you write residential, right? And you put up a post saying you can hold a residential property in a SIP, which we all know you can't do. If then somebody reads that, they may think, wow, what a great idea. And then perhaps go on Facebook, and bear with me, you know, they might do, and say, hey, apparently it's possible to put your home in your pension. It'll take about, you know, 3 seconds for somebody to come back and say, no, you bloody can't, that's ridiculous. And your message then has been, you know, quashed by people's social graph. So just as they would, you know, ask people they know in real life, you know, ask a knowledgeable person to validate what you put, they will now do that online. People are becoming aggregators, taking the different messages and forming their own decision from across the sources. So make sure your content is accurate. So once those things are in place, then we're talking about the confirmers, things which reinforce the decision that somebody's already made to trust you. So the first one is awareness. So just recognizing your name is not enough. I mean, nobody knows who I am, for crying out loud. I'm buried at the end of the country. But we all know that the best source of new business for us is referral from an existing client. Well, if somebody finds you on your website through a comment that somebody else that they know has made, then that's an extra kind of reinforcement. So if they know about you because somebody they know and trust knows about you, that's, you know, and it gets you into the second round. The social element again. And then, forgive me, typo, it's not relevance, it's relatability. As a content provider, you need to be able to sort of see things from your consumer's point of view. You need to sort of respect them and lead them like a knowledgeable friend. So if you're buying a second-hand car and you've got a mate who's a mechanic, you might take him with you to suss the car out. You need to be that person. So whatever your topic is, they need to see you as a sort of respected and knowledgeable friend who will lead them. And that's what I'm trying to do with the video. You know, it's like, let's walk through this stuff together. So these things confirm or reinforce the decision of somebody to trust you. And then these are the things which really are the sort of source on the top. These are the things which differentiate you. So obviously your expertise, having authority in your field, perhaps awards might help with that. But you need to be perceived as having essential value, life-changing, life-enhancing content. It needs to be content which advances your consumer towards their goal. They need to be able to attribute their progress to your information. If you can win that kind of trust, you're golden. For instance, I did a couple of episodes recently on how to budget. Right? This is not SASS's or spousal bypass trust. This is how to ensure you spend less than you earn. That was my favorite of I can't remember his name, the behavior gap sketches. You know, income must be greater, thank you. Income must be greater than or equal to expenses. You and I all know that financial planning, as much as we love to glory in our own expertise, essentially comes down to spend less than you earn, put the rest away, protect what's important, and have a plan to run to, okay? Your clients need to know that, or your consumers need to know that. But I did a couple episodes on budgeting, and one of them was a screencast, which is where you share the screen on your computer. And I provided for download the spreadsheet that I use, that I sit down with my wife at the beginning of every month, and we look, right, okay, what's coming up this month that we need to put in? It's dead simple, you know, money in, what has to go out, what's left to actually spend. And that's what we do every month. It's the way we ensure that we don't spend more than we earn so that we can secure our own future. And that spreadsheet was provided download. It's one of the most commented on ever. I've had lots of emails saying, I finally feel in control. Thank you so much. All I did was provide an Excel sheet. It took me about 20 minutes to put together. But if people can attribute their own progress towards their goals to your information, then you've cracked it. Provide choice. Give sort of more than one way for somebody to achieve what they want to achieve. Not just more products, but perhaps choice in the way they consume your content. So perhaps a choice of video or a podcast or written stuff. Obviously, video is my primary medium, but I'm sort of starting to get the videos transcribed and things like that. Give people choice as to how they consume your information and choices as to how they might apply it. Fairness, this is more about sort of pros and cons, really. Not being too preachy. And also acknowledging your own weakness. So budgeting actually happened to be something that I was awful at. Fortunately, I married a woman who's very good at it. I sometimes sort of revel in the irony that I do what I do now, when I used to, as a student, go to a cash machine and close my eyes and hope that it would give me money. Awful, really. I'm much better now, honest. But I acknowledge the fact that I, like at least 90% of the population, finds it difficult sometimes to get to the end of the month without having spent everything that's come in. So people relate to that. So acknowledge your own weaknesses, be honest and open. And if you are weak in a certain area, feel free to sort of provide outward links to other people who perhaps are better than you at that. It humanizes you, you know. And then finally, exclusivity. It offers something which provides a sense of community. I mean, Martin Lewis wrote the book on this, really. Love him or loathe him. Money Savings Expert is essentially a bunch of articles, but what it's really about is the forums, where people are fanatical in their fervour. So he didn't answer that many questions. Obviously, he's got moderators and stuff, but the community is what that website is really about and why it's so valuable. So offer something which provides community. There are two people who I listen to and read often. One is Gary Vaynerchuk, who wrote the book that sort of got me going on this. And another is a guy called Cliff Ravenscraft, who's the podcast Answer Man. They both do cruises for their followers. That's community. If you can get 100 people to pay $6,000 to go on a week-long cruise with you, just because they think you're ace, it's fair to say you've cracked the community thing. So that might be going a bit far, but you know what I mean? You can establish community. There's another guy called Dave Ramsey, who you will either love him or loathe him. I think he actually talks a lot of sense about personal finance, but he also peppers it very heavily with sort of southern state, deep south evangelical Christianity, so you have to sort of cut through that. But his followers are as fanatical as he is. So community is good. Okay, so all these things that we talked about will get people to the stage where they trust you. And what they then do is they use that trust to filter all the myriad messages that are coming at them every day. So all the messages, the adverts, the things they know they need to be doing, the things they're searching for, they use these things to filter that out. And what you want to do is to sort of pass that filtering process. 84% of the respondents to this About.com survey said they won't even enter what they call the purchase funnel until they trust a brand or an online information provider. They use these trust cues, if you like. These have to be in place for them even to begin to think about parting with money. And that's only going to increase as the world becomes increasingly online and social. There's no such thing now as one-stop shopping. People aggregate, so they'll think, I need something. I don't know, I need a kitchen device of some kind. I'll read reviews, but I'll read reviews from 3 different places. Then I'll go onto Facebook and Twitter and ask what other people think about the one I'm thinking of buying. Then I'll go onto Amazon or something like Kelku or something where I can compare prices, and only when I filtered all that information do I get to the point where I'm going to buy. That's just increasingly happening. You want to be a part of that. Not necessarily KitchenAid, but you know what I mean. When it comes to sort of building trust, reviews are really powerful. So I just want to mention something called Vouched For, which is a new service which has been recently sort of relaunched, which is kind of like a TripAdvisor for IFAs. If you don't know about that, it's vouchedfor.co.uk. I've just sort of got involved with it, actually, so I don't have any reviews yet. But it's where you can give clients that you've worked with, you send them there and they review you. It's going to be very important, I think. Okay, so obviously, by hook or by crook, and without any intention to do so, I got these clients down in Bexhill-on-Sea to write these words to me, which was just a great day. I thought, fantastic. That is a buying signal. I'd never heard from these people before, but I got them from complete strangers to giving me a fairly significant amount of money to invest and to arrange long-term care funding for her father. Which, and I did all that before actually meeting them in the flesh. It was all done by a Skype video. I have now met them. And they've become friends and real advocates of what I'm doing. So I'm very grateful to them. So how? Right? This is what you really want to know, I know. Do you follow all that? There's a lot of information there, but all I wanted to do is to bring out what I have obviously done without trying to do it. Try to sort of find the things which I've done, and hopefully you'll be able to apply. So, where are we doing? We've got 20 minutes left. I want to try and get some time for Q&A. Or, if there are no questions, an early finish. I call this the section of 3s because it's basically a bunch of 3 bullet point slides. So here we go. Any content that you create must do ideally ideally, all 3 of these. Must inform, entertain. Entertainment on its own is fairly worthless. The best one, of course, is to inspire to action. If you can do all 3, if you can provide useful information in an entertaining way and a punch at the end which gets people to take action, then you've cracked it. 3 things your content must do, ideally, all 3 of them. There are 3 types of online content. There will be a little bit of overlap from Monday, guys, so apologies if you're in the Monday session. Written blogs, podcasts, and video. Written blog, as you know, it's a bunch of articles listed in reverse order, the most recent first. Podcast is an audio conversation, essentially, and a video. Everybody knows what video is. Which one is best for you will depend on your temperament and your natural strength. So pick one and do it well. Let's look at some pros and cons of each. Um, a written blog has probably the lowest barrier to entry. I don't want to belittle the skill behind good writing. Anybody can write, but few people can write well. So it's easy to do in terms of the actual action. Most of us can use a word processor, and if you can, then you can do a written blog. But good writing is a real art. Because the internet is essentially made up of text, even though it's very graphic heavy these days, underneath all that, it's all just text called HTML. Written blogs, excuse me, are very search engine friendly, search engine optimization. So you can pepper your text with keywords which will drive you up the rankings. It's like a dark art, SEO, but if you get it right, it's very powerful. And once you have put in place a written blog, it's easy. If you do make a mistake, you can go back in and edit it and immediately republish. So that's a real benefit. You know, not just grammar and typos and things like that. But you know, if you happen to make a really obvious cock-up. So those are the sort of pros. Cons, there's lots and lots of competition. You know, there are something like 140 million blogs out there. Obviously, there's a lot less than that on personal finance or whatever, but that might not be what you want to write about. So there's a lot of competition. It's difficult to stand out as a result. This is actually a con of all online content. It's easy to get going, but it's difficult to maintain. As human beings, we are good starters and poor finishers as a rule. Okay. As I mentioned on Monday, I think I started or tried to start 3 blogs before I finally found the thing that I was good at and still enjoy enough to do 2 videos a week. So it's easy to start, but difficult to maintain. And as I say, good writing really is an art. It does take work. Not sure if that's really a con. Perhaps I was scratching around for a third con on that one. Podcasts, pros. It is just like chatting. We all of us probably talk for a living, essentially. You know, deep down, that's what we do. And you might not think you can talk about a subject for half an hour, but I bet any one of you in here could, if it's something you care about. No one is doing podcasting in our field regularly. There are a couple of advisors. Jeremy Deeds is one who occasionally does an audio boo, which is a short sort of 2 or 3 minute burst, generally quite sort of poor audio quality. But if you listen to a good podcast, it's just like manna for the ears. It's fantastic. So, but there's hardly anybody doing it, and nobody specifically in our field that I know of. Feel free to correct me on that if you found somebody that I haven't. And the great thing about podcasting is it's a really convenient way to consume information. And there's been 350 million iPods sold, 85 million iPhones, plus countless millions non-Apple MP3 players and smartphones. I don't know how many million gym memberships there are in the world, how many million or billion people have a commute into work of at least 25 minutes. This is dead time that you can fill with your information because it's audio. You don't have to, you can do other things while listening. Cons, it's technically more challenging, at least to do it well. You know, knowing things about microphones and recording and stuff like that, but there's plenty of information out there that you can find to learn to do it. Obviously, once you've put up a podcast, you can't sort of edit it and take some words out in the middle. You'd have to take it down and do that and put it back up. Not very easy. And because it's audio, it's less search engine friendly, but the good podcasters will transcribe or at the very least put show notes on a sort of blog post to help with the search engines. How about video then? Well, as human beings, we are wired to subconsciously take into account all aspects of a person that we are talking to. So shape and size. So people watch me on video, they know I'm 3 stone overweight and I'm a Yorkshireman living a long way from home. But they can see the whites of my eyes. They know that I smile a lot, and you can relate to people. I mean, I might completely turn some people off, and that's fine. But you know, people can see the whole you on video, and there is a marked sort of increase in the level of engagement when people can watch you. You can use graphics for emphasis. So often I stand to the side of the frame and bring in a graphic just to emphasize what I'm doing. And arguably, of all the media, it's the most engaging for the reasons above. But it's the most technically complex. you know, there's not only the visual side, there's the audio side. Obviously, you can see I'm extremely good at that because I forgot to turn the flipping thing on. But there's the editing after that. But it's all doable. I just learned as I went along. I happen to like computers, so I sort of fell into that quite naturally. But there are other people who could do that bit for you. It's very difficult to edit once posted. So if you do make a mistake, I've done this. I've put something up, and then I've watched it back, and thought, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. Took it down again, and then had to reshoot, which is annoying. And probably the biggest downside of video is that it's the most attention intensive. You can't really drive a car and watch a video at the same time. It's not a good idea. You know, you have to watch, and so you're engaging pretty much fully with that, just as you're all engaging fully with me now. You know, it's quite attention intensive, so that can be a downside. Okay, 3 do's, things to make sure you do with your online content. Key rule is to be consistent, post regularly. I'm rattling through these, so bear with me. Obviously, write, talk, film about what you know. People will spot a fraud a mile off, so don't try and blag your way through your online content. Stay on message. Subset really of be consistent. Whatever you decide to talk about, stick with it. 3 more do's. Use the social networks. You hear a lot about that at this conference, not least because the chief exec and many of the board of the IFP are social media devotees. But social media is there to listen. Yes, to get your word out, but not to push. They are not broadcast media. So Facebook, Twitter, and things like that are listening tools, really, and conversational tools. Make sure you engage via comments. Obviously on your own website, that's a given, but especially on websites similar to yours, but you know, maybe slightly different. So there are some fantastic finance bloggers out there. A guy called Moneyvator, I don't know his real name, but he's a brilliant site, and so some really good comments he gets. So, you know, just going in there, he hates advisors, actually. So I've had some good conversations with him and his sort of commenters. But, you know, if you talk sense, if you engage, if you add to the conversation, people will follow you back to your website. Get your own domain. Okay, this is a bit of a throwaway one there, so make sure you're not petematthew.blogspot.com, but just spend less than 10 quid a year and get your own domain. 3 don'ts, 3 things not to do. Don't spam your consumers. That should be obvious, right? Don't just push all the time. That's not what it's about. Don't pitch too high. Keep your language understandable and your tone at the right level. And certainly don't preach. I realize I'm preaching at you, okay? It's my evangelical Christian upbringing, I'm afraid. But, you know, remember what I said about being a trusted friend. A trusted friend wouldn't sort of lambast you for not doing something right. They would guide you along, and that's what you need to be doing with your online content. 3 excellent examples of people doing it right. Martin Bamford has a tendency to polarize opinion, which is another piece of evidence that he's doing it right. Bamford he writes regular posts, at least one a day, usually less than 300 words. That's the reason he's far and away, to my mind, the most often quoted advisor in the national press. He has an opinion. He puts it on his website. I know that his website is a primary driver of new business to his firm. Okay, so he's arguably the best in our industry at written blogging. Michael Hyatt is nothing to do with our industry. I mentioned him briefly on Monday, but he's something like the 7th most visited blog in the world, 500,000 monthly unique visitors. Awesome content. He has a podcast. He's 3 times a week he blogs. Really good, but his podcast is superb, not only for its quality of audio and things like that, which I really appreciate, but his content, which is what it's really all about. So check out michaelhyatt.com. And then, oh, no, how did that get in there? An example of video, which is not me, is this guy. Talk about a niche. This is Dave Dugdale. He has a website, learningdslrvideo.com, right? So if you've got a DSLR camera, his entire niche is using video to teach people how to shoot video on their DSLR camera. The internet is a broad and wide place. You can find a niche. He makes a very good living out of this. by having affiliate links to equipment and things like that. He does very well. And he's great. You know, he just gets in front of the camera, says it how it is, teaches people how to do things. He's fantastic. I watch him a lot. Whatever your thing is, there's a site which will teach you how to do it. 3 objections. Okay, I get these quite often. If you're producing content online, because the entire world can see it, the people who come to you are going to be of indiscriminate quality. Possibly, certainly that was the case for me. I'd turn some people away, but you're going to do that anyway. You know, if you put an advert in the press, you're going to get indiscriminate sort of results from it. So they're just going to feed into your natural filtering system as a business anyway. But if, like all marketing, if you pitch it right, then you should get the right kind of response. Second objection, it just takes too much time. You know, how does Martin Bamford write all those articles every week? I'll let you answer that. You know, I'm busy running a business. I don't have the time to do this. Totally understand that. If you think it's important, you'll make time. It's like anything. I realized in May, you know, I'm managing director of Jackson's. We're a small provincial firm, but there's 6 advisors, 4 staff, battling with all the same things that you are. It takes time. And I realized I was spending my evenings sort of behind my laptop working on my stuff for Meaningful Money. And, you know, I've got a 12-year-old and 9-year-old daughter. So I thought before my wife divorces me for never speaking to her in an evening, I need to change something. And so I decided, I asked myself, do I want to carry on with this? Bear in mind that Jackson's is the thing that pays my mortgage. You know, that's the primary part of my business life. But I really feel very strongly about this, so I want to carry on. So now I get up at 5. I just decided I wanted to do it. So I get up at 5, work till 6:30 on my stuff, have breakfast, take the dog, go to work for 8, work till 5, and then come home and spend the evening with my kids. But I want to do it, so I make time. You will too, if you want to do it. Hopefully, you'll see that there are benefits. Final one is that there's nothing new to say. Everything's been said about personal finance. That's just nonsense, because even if it's been said before, you've never said it before, and your uniqueness is what will make you stand out. 3 very good resources. Copyblogger.com, this is on their homepage, if you just scroll down a little bit. So tutorials on how to write good copy, how to do email marketing properly, how to build good landing pages. Fantastic resource, completely free. The best book, I mentioned this on Monday, the best book on the subject, read it. It's a step-by-step guide to doing this stuff right by the master, Michael Hyatt. And then finally, again, Gareth Thompson. He will build you the website which will make this easy at Code Potato. 3 final ideas. Be a consumer first. Does anybody know what Google Reader is? And does anybody use it? I'll tell you what, folks, this is probably the most useful thing I say to you all morning. You probably have several websites that you check regularly. Right? I do. I check in regularly with about 130 sites. Okay? Now, you couldn't possibly go to 130 different websites every day. All these sites will have an RSS feed. You just need to find it. It's a little icon. It looks like it's like an orange square with what looks like a sort of sound wave on it. And what that will do, it's a feed of all the posts on there. You plug that into Google Reader. Just go to reader.google.com. And it will aggregate them for you. So you can put them in folders and organize them how you want. And all you do then is scan headlines. So you can group them. So I'm a bit of a nerd. So I have lots of websites about Apple and Macs and podcasting and stuff like that. And I just scan headlines. First thing I do every morning. So be a consumer first. The only reason I know about this stuff, Michelle, you asked me that. How do you know about that? It's only because, you know, I'm reading it from other people. And now you're hearing it from me. So become a consumer first, and you'll know how to do this, how to be a provider second. Why not do a site for professionals? I'm aiming at ordinary people who just need to know how finance works. But if in your area you want to be targeting accountants or lawyers in a particular field, why not just set up a site for them and send them a link and say, look, we started this site, we've got 10 articles on there, we're going to be posting every week or something like that, and see what that does for your referrals. And start a podcast before I do, because there's nobody else doing it. Slides, video, at least everything except the 2 minutes, are going to be on this site, including links to some of the stuff that I've talked about. So petematthew.com/IFP2012. Send me an email. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. We just haven't even begun to scratch the surface. Absolutely, the world is listening. There has never been a time in history where you can be published, where there's nobody being a gatekeeper for your message, where there's nobody editing it, there's nobody saying you're too fat or you're too ugly or you've got a stupid accent. You can get out there and do it, and people will listen. 70 people every day watch one of my videos, which is staggering to me. You know, it's sort of a little over 2,000 every month. And the thing which keeps me going is the comments and the emails and stuff that I get, people saying thank you for helping me. And you can do the same, okay? So thank you, folks, very much for listening. Absolutely out of breath. But I hope that's been helpful. Fire any questions at me, by all means. But we've got Q&A, if you have any. Michelle.
It breaks me to ask you this question, but a lot of advisors are sort of stumbling across compliance when it comes to social media. How do you deal with that, or if you have to?
I don't think there's any more issue with compliance than there is if you, on social media, than there is if you go to a dinner party, okay, and somebody asks you about it. All the social media are really is one big conversation. So as long as you're not daft enough, for somebody to send you a 140-character tweet and says, what should I do with the 50 grand that I've just inherited? And you say, well, I would do this if I were you, then you're asking for trouble. You know, be aware of the financial promotions rules. But meaningful money is generic. I have disclaimers on there, I'm not daft. But meaningful money is generic, so just exercise the same common sense as you would in any ordinary public situation, you'd be fine. I honestly think, I mean, the big providers, you know, perhaps the networks and stuff, I understand their paranoia on this because they've got a lot of people to watch. But, you know, just exercise common sense. There's no more danger for compliance, in my mind, to using social media if you just exercise the same common sense as you would normally. David?
Really easy answer to that. Leave your network.
Leave your... You said that, David, not me.
What degree do you script your
My videos? One-page notes. I put them on an iPad. They're just on. I have a little bracket that goes under the camera. They were getting too long. They were getting to about 8 minutes, so that's far too long in YouTube world. So now I'm keeping them under 4 minutes, bullet points only. But you know, I mean, you can do that easily. It flows a little better. So I need hooks, particularly if I'm sort of running through an example or something. I'll need to have the figures there. But it's mostly just bullet point notes that I can just get out. Hey.
How do you deal with the logistics side? Bearing in mind the online world is so big, you might, for example, have a client who all of a sudden wants to engage with you living in Aberdeen.
Good question.
How do you deal with that side of it?
Good question. Picked up clients in Yorkshire, Bexley-on-Sea in East Sussex, Buckinghamshire, Oxfordshire. All of those are a very long way from Penzance. Everywhere is a long way. It takes me 2.5 hours to get to Exeter, for crying out loud. Most of you people think the southwest ends at Exeter. Okay, you've got another 2.5 hours before my house. You get to Penzance, it's another 15 minutes to my house. But anyway. Skype video or FaceTime. As I said, the meetings, you know, I did the entire process on video. All right, I've met them since. I don't believe you can, thank you, you can you just have a relationship. I would want to see everybody in the flesh at some point. So then, you know, I go up to London 3 or 4 times a year, so I'll just try and do it at the same time, or up to the branch chairman's meeting. I saw a client in Leamington Spa on the way, so just got to plug it in. But I can't keep doing that. But, you know, I'm sort of approaching the limit of how many clients I can deal with anyway, but that's why I have staff. Anything else? David?
But is there not an issue there if you build up a personal brand through Meaningful Money TV that it's going to be difficult with Jackson's because people are going to come because of you, not because of Jackson's?
Potentially, that's absolutely right. That's not something I have an answer for. I'm eventually going to hit saturation.
It's not a negative because...
No, but it's a real issue. So, I mean, hopefully, because I'm the MD of Jackson's, what I'm trying to do is to put my stamp on that firm. You know, we only take advisors who work the same way as I do. And so hopefully I'm using my brand to influence my firm. And so hopefully that will work. One more.
The problem that you just described seems to me to be one that you need to think about right from the beginning, which is that, you know, in a way, Meaningful Money is a great personal project that's done a lot for people and spread that education. But you're nearly full. That's where your revenue comes from.
Yeah.
It seems to me it could actually end up being a bit of a dead end.
Oh, potentially.
You have a way of turning it into a revenue generation rather than making a business problem.
Absolutely. It comes down to motives, though. I genuinely never thought I would get any business out of it. This was something I did on my own time. I wanted to help the people who were nowhere near me, couldn't afford me, to understand the basics, to equip themselves to take control of their money. That's what really gets me out of bed in the morning. Well, yeah, exactly. But then, you know, I provide a link to vouched for. Maybe they can find an advisor. I'm writing an ebook into how to get advice, what to spot, what the first meeting should be like, how to spot a shark, you know, audio triggers, some things that people say which you might want to be wary of, right? We've all had advisors. The Meekings who came to me dealt with a certain large national wealth management firm, okay? Had 4 meetings, never got given the terms of business, and only got told the charges when they were being handed the application form. When they were told the charges, the people physically kicked them out of their house. Were disappointed, disheartened, concerned that they might get ripped off by the next people they turned to. Where did they turn? Online. They found me. Fortunately, I was able to deal with them. But my overriding passion is that these people can help themselves, right? The RDR will, I'm pleased with the RDR, but it will disenfranchise a lot of people who need advice. I'm convinced of that. So I'm just trying to do my small bit to bridge that gap, but it won't bridge it completely. All right? Guys, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.